This is the pedal, what it looks like when it's removed after many years of riding. It's a no-name Chinese one, but quite good. And these are the parts once it's disassembled. So we have the outer shell of the pedal. We have the closing cap. We have the axle with the nut and the washer to keep it all packed together. This is what it looks like. And we have two bearings that go over this section here and are pressed inside here. So I will show a bit of cleaning just briefly. So I already washed this with some detergent and brush, and now I will use some degreaser and the cloth, an old cotton cloth, to just further clean this before going further. So here we have a layer of some rust or similar, and I am trying to use a bit of plastic and wood to scrape it, or my nails, but it's not going very well. And I might use some very fine sandpaper to clean and remove it, make it shiny, or just spray some rust inhibitor on it and call it a day and reassemble the pedals as they are. That is also a viable option. There is a point of diminishing returns when fixing stuff. So let's leave it for further thinking as it is. And now try and get this clean. So this is an effective tool. I will go to the sink and use some degreaser and give it a good rub. Now, reassembly is tricky. Why? Because you need to push the bearings in using the outer race, not push against the inner race, so to avoid and prevent damaging the bearings. So that part is tricky because I need to push the bearings inside here. This is recessed and it's pretty deep inside. I have an article and video, showing how to use this tool. Accurate, precise, and using vernier calipers. So here we have about 34 millimeters depth until the wall where I need to press the bearings against is. That's the tricky part. Now, how do I do that without risking to damage this relatively soft aluminum outer surface? Well, I measured the bearings, so inside it's 6 millimeters, outside it's 13, probably nominal 12.99, and the thickness is 5. So I went and bought some new Japanese bearings, still made in Japan. Small country, small machines, small men, but quite good despite all that. So how do we do that? Well, this is my thinking. I was trying to find something that is closest matching, and this in my toolbox 9 millimeter shorter socket, 1/4 inch, is what gets the job done. Closest 12.9, 1289. So that should get the job done, hopefully. If I try to double check the thickness of the outer race, the diameter, it's about 11 millimeters. So this should be pressing against that outer race, ideally. As you can see, that's as good as it gets, while still being able to freely pop into this. So that is good. Next, to make my job easier, I will put the bearings in a freezer to make them cool. I will not be heating the aluminum. And I also have this because when I put this inside, it's still a bit not enough, but there will be 2 bearings there added to push, so I don't need to have it all the way down. I will have 1 centimeter of extra room, but how deep is this? Let's double check. That's 9 millimeters, so perhaps just enough. However, there is a problem. This part is recessed, so this part that I will be using as a mechanism, the quick release lever, I've made a video showing how it works, so that should allow me to get this job done. And this is, let's see the depth, 2.5 millimeters, and so I found this closest matching in diameter, that's 4 millimeters. So, sorry, 3.4 millimeters, so enough to cover for this difference, and it should be able to push against this and fit nicely here and fit snugly around this. So those are all things that should hopefully help me get this properly. So I will align it like this, and then here it's pretty strong, so it should be a stable platform to push it evenly. So that is my goal, that is the plan. When I push those two in, afterwards I slide this in and then put this washer over it and then tighten this, and I will put some thread locker here. So that's the plan. I have it all prepared here. Plan so cunning you could put a tail on it and call it a weasel. So now the problem that I expect to see is this. So this is, as a lady said, too long. So I need to improvise further. I've got this set for all kinds of bearings, and let's see if this will get the job done. On this side where the bearing is pushed in, I will have this and the attachment and this on top. That's all there is on that side, but on the opposite side I need to create some more distance, so I have this diameter here. It must be larger than this diameter, so about 14 millimeters, and not wider than 19 millimeters, because I want it to rest on this flat edge. So this looks about the right thing. Yes, it fits perfectly. So that will create some extra space to make sure that I can work easily. So I will be starting with the longer, and then as I keep pressing it in and tightening it, it should work out nicely. The famous last words, along with the dragon must be asleep. Okay, so let's try to disassemble this one and show that on video. So I have an M6, the 6 size hex for this side and an 8 size hex for the inner side. This will be handy at a later stage. For now I just need this one. So I will hold it in my hand and try to unscrew this. If that is not enough, I could use a vise, but it should work. There it is. Took a bit of force, but now I can unscrew this. So here it is. The first part is opened, disassembled, and here I have an 8 millimeter, an M8 millimeter, how they say, socket bolt, or sorry, nut, and I need to use this to hold the counter in order to further disassemble it. So that's what I will go with now. So I'll need something like this to get all the way inside, and I can double check how much plate there is. So that's the size we want. Set this to loosening, and let's try to unscrew this. It's not a reverse thread, is it? For the one pedal, but for the other it may just well be. Let's see. Yes, my bad. It's a reverse thread for the right pedal, right hand side pedal, and it makes perfect sense. So that's another thing to note. So I was an idiot. Caught on camera. Probably not for the last time if I live long enough. So do as I say, don't do as I do. So Here is the other nut. The other nut. Okay. Now I can try to pull this out, and here you can see some grease left from from the factory 10 years ago. And this is the amount of gunk. There is not as much rust here as much as I can see as on the other one, but we will see about that. And there is the washer. So those are the parts as they go. So that's one thing, and now I need to get the bearings out. For that, I can punch them out from this side. Here I cannot get any bearing puller because you don't have a blind bearing puller for the 6mm inner diameter. So I will be just using this. And in this case, because I'm punching them out, I don't care about making sure that I'm pressing against the outer race. These are worn bearings that are just going to be replaced. So I will put this on some flat surface and punch the bearings out. Didn't need to use a lot of force, and trying not to use any excessive force. Okay, so here I can feel them coming out, and you can see here are the other two bearings, the old ones. So that's all. That's how you disassemble it. And now I will remove these extra tools and go on to install the bearings first on that side. The first thing that I've noticed is that apparently I seem to have bought the wrong size of bearings. So, yes, I will not be able to install this because the inner race is too small. Okay, so there we are. Yes, the wrong size. So, should have double checked, even though I gave them exact specifications. That's life. It happens. You must double check for yourself and not expect others to check for you. That's how it is. So, back to the drawing board, back to the shop to get the proper sized bearings, and then hopefully do the job. So, as is often the case, problems happen when two people make a mistake or aren't careful at the same time. It goes for traffic and for work also. So in this case, I was not paying attention to what the shop worker was selling me, and he was not paying attention to the dimensions that I told him, and I was not paying attention to what he was packing. So two mistakes at the same time. It was sorted out quickly, but I had to go back to the shop and get that replaced. So fixed as conveniently as possible, but made a small setback. So a note to self, if that's needed, more to be more careful and pay attention, because I cannot expect others to pay attention for me if I'm not paying attention for me. So the same goes again for traffic and other things in life. So now let's give it another try. We'll smear some mounting paste around the place where the bearings will sit. That will hopefully help me later on. So I started them well, the bearings dropped in place nicely, Now let's see about this improvised bearing press. Let's see if it will cooperate. Screwing it in, and now to make sure that it's all centered as well as possible. Okay, now I need to use this to exert some pressure. This is a big movement of a lever for a relatively small amount of movement of the pulling of the axle or the threaded part. So the needle, so it's a pretty strong mechanism, and I have a video showing and explaining the ingenuity of the quick release system, so which is getting phased out now because capitalism. they need to make money and convince you that you're buying new and better. So let's see. Okay, so move the bit, let's disassemble this, and now we have some play. So I need to get this further, and let's try a bit more. You can see it moving, hopefully, the letters, and let's see until I can feel it bottoming out. Now I'm getting close to bottoming out, and based on my measurements I'm also getting close to having the bearings seated all the way. I think this is it, and let's see. Okay, this is what it looks like, and as far as I can tell it's seated all the way in. And to try to double check, I will try to put this inside and feel if I can get it caught on when it hits the bearing, if there is some gap left, but no, I cannot get this thingy inside, so it's good. This part is done. Now I need to assemble this. So we have the dust protection, and what I will do here now is to use this Motorex bike grease or grease 2000 that is officially listed as not very problematic for rubber or plastic, and I can even on other people's bikes I feel comfortable doing this. So smeared a little bit there to coat it, and then I will be able to insert it and have some lubricant, some extra protection by that lubricant. Let's smear it all over the axle except for the threads at the very top, so I want to have some lubrication there all the way. And I will now add just a little bit more on this very section here, and on this angle here, and on this angle here. Hoping that it will get squeezed out to where it is needed. Okay, so that's the first part. So now we'll slide this in. Haven't forgotten anything? No? Okay. Yes, I did. I forgot to put some thread locker here. It will be difficult to do afterwards. And I will put some blue thread locker, so not too aggressive, to prevent me from unscrewing this without heating or any extra effort, but hopefully will prevent the nut from unscrewing due to vibrations and things like that without me having to tighten it. So I put a very relatively thin layer of it all around. Okay, now let's try to get this all the way in. Okay, so there we have it. Now I need to place this thing and the nut, and for that I will also again use my improvised tool to get this thing there in place. First I will give this a few spins to make sure that all the extra grease is squeezed out. Now I will put this on the end of the shaft and let the ring slide into place. Had to improvise with this tool to get it nicely to sit in place. Now I will put the nut there. Let's see if I have better luck with the nut. I will put just a small amount of thread locker here too, and some of it will be lost now when I use this, but hopefully I will be able to get it in place more or less. Now very gently, trying not to cross thread. This one has the right hand thread, and the right hand pedal has the left hand thread on the Locknut, so that's another thing to remember to note. Now I need to use this for leverage and this to close it up, to tighten it, but not too much. As you can see, there is here a wider section, but there is no limit to how much I can put pressure with the nut. So I can in theory at least press the bearings too hard with the nut, because it does let me do that. Of course there is something here in the middle for these inner sections to be held in place so that I cannot create too much preload, most probably by design, but let's see. Okay, this is spinning smoothly with some play. Okay, let's tighten this further. Okay, this is now as tight as I would dare to do it, and now let's see. Almost forgot, of course, I need to put this thing back in, of course. So that's the hex size 6, and let's put some anti-seize on the threads to make sure I can remove it anytime in the future easily. Okay. Okay, so okay, still a little bit of play. Okay, so these pedals are quite old. They are indeed also quite worn, pretty much. And that may be what I'm seeing here as a problem. And so, yeah, maybe I should have done a more regular service, even though the bearings are cartridge. So maybe that all rust and everything got to them, so it's less than ideal. In this case, I must admit it, but hopefully they will do the job for commuting without squealing and creating any problems, because I opened them up when they started squealing. So again, perhaps my mistake on my part. It is what it is. Now we will see how they fare in the future. So that's the whole video. I hope I got everything on camera and will be able to mount it and show it to you. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in some other video. Use the BikeGremlin.net forum for any questions or comments or additions, and stay cool.